Am I the asshole for yelling at my deceased brother's wife that I'm not her husband? My M31 brother passed away 16 months ago. I have 2 brothers and he was the youngest. His wife was pregnant when he passed away and both me and my older brother started helping her every day. We'd take turns in giving her rides to the hospital, work, grocery store, and we'd help her with the house as well as other things. However, she stopped calling my older brother and kept calling me to do things for her. I started taking care of the house, taking her places, and taking care of financial issues. I noticed my brother wasn't showing up and helping. She said she didn't wanna bother him since he has family and kids and I didn't, so she thought I'd be okay with her calling every minute to ask me to do things for her, saying I'm single, I don't have a family to take care of, and so why not help. She even called me for every doctor visit, and when she went into labor I was the one she called. It was a stressful phase, and once my niece was born I started taking care of her as well. My sister-in-law would call me in the middle of the night wanting me to take my niece to the hospital. She'd have me go with her to certain occasions her friends had. I started getting uncomfortable. I spoke to my family and my brother, who told me she didn't want him to help despite the offer, and it occurred to me that she was just focusing on me supporting her. Yesterday, she came to visit my family while everyone was there including me. She started talking about what happened last week, my niece getting sick and taken to the hospital, and joked about how the doctor thought I was my niece's dad. My mom was staring at me confused. My sister-in-law then, before I leave, asked if I could go with her to attend her cousin's wedding since she didn't have friends to go with. I told her I was busy and that I won't be going to the wedding of someone I don't know with her. She tried to argue and got offended when I told her to ask my brother instead. I yelled at her that I'm not her husband and it was wrong of her to act like that. The whole room went quiet and they were all staring at me. She got upset and started crying. The whole family sided with her and came at me saying I was being harsh and cruel to her and that I shouldn't have said such an awful thing. I left after that. And I haven't heard from them since then. I feel bad and I gotta say it's just too much pressure and exhaustion.
She was taking advantage of you and assuming you would constantly help her just because you were single. That was very wrong of her. But your comment how you're not her husband was indeed cruel. There were certainly better ways for you to have broached that subject.
Not the asshole. Admittedly, you shouldn't have yelled at her in front of family. However, presuming you were close to your brother, I'm sure you are also still grieving for him while also being repeatedly forced into the role of his stand-in. It is probably easier for you to help than your other brother because you don't have your own wife and kids, but you're not required to be her escort for social occasions. She could go to the wedding alone. Also, it has been 16 months, at some point she needs to become self-sufficient. She is an adult, she needs to act like it. I understand that grieving her husband and being a single parent are hard, but forcing you to be the replacement is not a healthy response for you, or her. Info. Have you ever talked with her about boundaries, or have you said that you feel uncomfortable seemingly being her only support system? Or did you simply shout at her first?
No assholes here. PPL grieve in different ways. But you need to set your boundaries. You were uncomfortable so you said no. Although you shouldn't have screamed it at her, you could have told her no and then moved away. Maybe even involve your mom so she can get the point across. I'd just call a family meeting and apologize to her and tell her that you have boundaries and she needs to respect your space. Also that you'll be there in your niece's life as an uncle just like any other uncle, but you're in no way, form and shape a pseudo-dad to her. I'm so sorry for your loss. I don't think you were out of line. It needed to be said. She had been taking advantage of you. She needs to start figuring out a new way to live without you at her beck and call.
You are the asshole for the way you reacted, not for what you said. You're not the asshole for saying something, but, considering you've been supporting her in that way for so long and haven't let her know how you were feeling, to suddenly yell something like that in front of a room full of people does kinda mean you are the asshole, I'm afraid.
Not the asshole. I'm really sorry about your brother. His wife has gotten used to having you step in to take his place, and it sounds like you've been bending over backwards to accommodate her. It's time for her to learn how to be a widow, single mom, and to let you live your life. You could have been kinder in your delivery, but I don't deem you the asshole here.
Not the asshole, and wow. What's so awful about the truth? Naturally, though, she's disappointed since you already set a precedent that you are at her beck and call, and suddenly now you aren't. But what's the deal? Does she have the hots for you or something? Does your mom and the rest of the family not know how much you have already been helping her? Shaking my head in wonder. First, not the asshole, I'm sorry. My thoughts are going to cause issues. You are single, Appa's single. You got selected to be replacement daddy, husband. She had help from others and refused it. Grief and stress of being a new mom aside. She was taking advantage of you. I'm sorry, I have a hard time believing she didn't know what she was doing. Where was your time to grieve for the brother you lost? You stepped up to fill a void for her. She used shitty excuses to keep you and only as the one she ran to. She played on your own grief and guilt.
You are the asshole for yelling. That was not necessary. Interesting to note you mentioned your mom's confused look about you helping with your niece at hospital as the first trigger. I think you are embarrassed about what this looks like from the outside and your reputation rather than your Sil and niece's well-being. Apologize to Sil, explain in a nice way that whilst you are still happy to help sometimes you are not able to do it all the time anymore.
Not the asshole. Not only is she using you, it sounds like she is trying to turn you into husband near. 2. You could have been nicer in your wording, but it is clear that she doesn't understand boundaries. Surely it is hard to lose your significant other that early while being pregnant, but her entitlement to your time is alarming. I'd suggest to let your family calm down and talk to them one-on-one about what she is putting you through. They, probably still think you, the asshole, but they might start to understand why you exploded.
You are the asshole. You should have said something earlier instead of bottling it up and exploding.
I think yes, her behavior wasn't a correct one, but you're not a kid. What you should have done before getting to this point is talk to her. You know you were frustrated, and you know things didn't feel right. This could have been better dealt with if you had sit her down and talked like adults. Yes, she isn't right in how she's been crossing boundaries, but that doesn't excuse doing that in front of the whole family. I think the conversation is long overdue, and you should start it off by apologizing for how you blew up at her. This is the family your brother left behind. Do you feel okay treating this like this?
NTA Even when you are the most identical and close thing that looks like your brother, you are not your brother. Expressionless.
In my opinion, it's hard to say. She shouldn't be offended that you want to have your own life and do other things and not obey her every command. On the other hand, I do believe you could have handled the confrontation better, maybe not mentioning your younger brother. Most likely not the asshole in my opinion, but it definitely wasn't perfect either.
Not the asshole. You were on to her behavior.
Not the asshole. She should not argued with you or got offended by your decision and accepted the no you have her. That pushed her into asshole territory for me. I understand she is grieving and has a lot on her plate, but she is wrong to expect so much of you just because you're single. That is really inconsiderate. Moving forward, if she ever talks to you again, you have to be explicitly clear with your boundaries.
And I haven't heard from them since then. I feel bad, and I gotta say it's just too much pressure and exhaustion. Not the asshole, but this is for the best. Give everyone a bit of time to kind of process what happened and what they expect going forwards. You should stay firm, but reach out to your mom and sister for advice on exactly what the fuck is going on, because I think you're right. Your Sil is basically treating you as a surrogate.
Not the asshole. She started blurring the lines with the family aspect, and honestly you are hovering very close to replacement dad territory, dude. I think you need to keep some deliberate separation from her from now on, and when everything cools down you need to set some firm boundaries. Like it or not, it's only a matter of time before some boundaries get crossed by either you or her. Not the asshole. Why? Well, you were just beginning to realize your Sil was using you as a replacement and were uncomfortable with it. I'm betting you hesitated to say anything because you thought your family would urge you to continue helping her. Then came that last family event, and wait for it. My mom was staring at me confused. Went from uneasy to WAAAAY out of your comfort zone in less than half a second. Where is her family? Why doesn't she have any friends to help her? She has you going to social events with her and wanted you for this wedding. Your family can support her, but they need to ease off on demanding you apologize. I don't think you should have any more interaction with her until she returns to this reality.
Not the asshole, she is taking advantage of your kindness and willingness to help her out. You shouldn't be doing everything for her. Going to a wedding like that could be considered a date, and as you said, you are not her husband.
Not the asshole. I think your sister-in-law has decided you could be her next husband. That would explain why she cried. You were just being honest.
Not the asshole. You've given enough. Now it's someone else's turn. You've honored your brother beautifully. Let someone else deal with her, and even better that it's not someone in your family. Time for her to grow up a little bit, and stop acting like a buzzard to a piece of meat. Trust me, as a female, she wants you to be a couple with her, and a family with your niece. You so need a break that you're becoming resentful. I would be too.
Not the asshole, you could have been nicer, but I find it telling that she tried to put you on the spot with the public invite. You said no, and she refused to accept it and got offended when you suggested she take someone else. It's not that she didn't know that you weren't willing, it's that she didn't care. And yes, she's grieving and she has a new baby, but you're grieving too, and it sounds like this has been a one-way stream of support. Time to shut that down.
You are the asshole, for the way you handled it. Publicly and aggressively was not necessary. You were right to draw a boundary here, but you could have been more considerate in how you did so.
Not the asshole. She said she didn't want to bother him since he has family and kids, and I didn't, so she thought I'd be okay with her calling every minute to ask me to do things for her, saying I'm single, I don't have a family to take care of, and so why not help? Sounds like Op asked her why are you asking me and only me before, and have tried to talk to the sill. Also, why is it that people assume single people have all this free time? Single people can be just as busy as people with kids and spouses.
NTA. She took advantage of your generosity and you need to tone it down. You two are not dating and she doesn't need to be monopolizing all your time like that. She's not your responsibility and never was. Learn to say no and live your life, because I doubt it revolves around her.
Not the asshole.
Not the asshole. She's been putting you in a husband role and it isn't fair to you. Step way back from helping. There's no reason she can't attend her child's regular doctor's appointments without you, for instance.
Sexist thread. If a guy were doing this, he'd rightfully be called a creep. Not the asshole.
Not the asshole. I think she's trying to ease you into place as her new husband. It's a bit strange, but grief does funny things. She's also probably stressed at being a single mother, and decided that because you're single and related to the child, that you might eventually be in a relationship with her and become the father.
Not the asshole. This is one of those things that needs to be nipped in the bud ASAP. She was just imposing the role of father, husband on you little by little, counting on you being too polite to speak up. Maybe you are harsh, but this woman doesn't strike me as the type to take subtle hints or understand boundaries.
Not the asshole overall, but your approach and timing suck. She's been taking advantage of you for a long time and you should have pushed back sooner. I would apologize for the manner you delivered your message, but not really the message itself.
Not the asshole. She had no right to use you like that. Yeah, helping out is one thing, but using like you are her partner is wrong. You were just helping your deceased loved one partner, and your family going to her side is wrong.
Not the asshole. Who are the assholes? Her and your family. None of them have stepped up to help her. She started focusing in on you and not allowing your married brother to help. That's not really fair, and it makes it seem like she's trying to get you to be her new partner. Not the asshole. You snapped after being taken advantage of for a year and a half.
Not the asshole. From your post, you're clearly uncomfortable and already said no. And she's trying to argue. You shouldn't have yelled, but I wouldn't blame you in that occasion. What are you supposed to when she's arguing you should go after you already said no? Repetitive.
NTA, you aren't her husband? How is that a harsh thing to say? She needs a reality check. Maybe for how you did it, but your frustration is understandable. By the way, in the old days the unmarried brother would marry the widow. My grandmother was really my aunt. Quick story. My grandpa's wife died. His brother died soon after. Widowed sister-in-law and him get married and were married for 30+ years. They are each buried back with their originals, but are close by each other. NTA. She needs therapy.
I'm very sorry for your loss.
Not the asshole. I'm baffled at to what extent the thought that One, your life should revolve around hers. 2, your life was less important than your brother's because you didn't have kids. She's really entitled and take everything you did for granted. Time to stop being nice.
Not the asshole. It's time for her to move on. Not the asshole.
Not the asshole. It does seem she may be developing feelings for you beyond a brother-in-law relationship.
Not the asshole.
It seems like she has feelings for you. I'm sorry you lost your brother, she lost her husband. You are the asshole for yelling at her in front of family. You stomped on her feelings and lacked tact. You're not the asshole for not wanting to go to the wedding or setting boundaries. You just went about it horribly. This was something that should have been said between just the two of you. You bottled it up until you caused a scene. If she made you uncomfortable and you didn't feel like talking about it, you could have texted and told her where you stood. Yep, not the asshole.
Holy shit. I lost my husband at a young age with 2 young children. Losing a spouse is hard. Until you go through it, a lot of these posts need to STFU. Grief does a horrible thing. It affects every person differently. Did the Sil cope with the loss in some bad ways? Yes. Everyone is eager to help. No one is eager for the fall out of the effects of the help. Could you have handled it better? Yes. But you are also grieving. It sounds like you both need to spend some time apart and figure out what your roles are now without your brother. The only thing linking you anymore is the baby. If you want to be a part of that baby's life, you need to establish boundaries. You may want to talk to a professional about all of this.
I'm gonna go with not the asshole here. Plenty of people may disagree. I understand she was in a terrible position and phase of her life, but that doesn't mean you have to be her emotional and physical doormat. And she treated you like one.